Hi all, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for clicking on this video, and if you're new here, hello, my name's Eliza. I'm a disabled person and I make content every Tuesday and Thursday at 5 p.m. all about disability awareness, LGBTQ+ positivity and lifestyle things. So come in, welcome, and today we're going to be watching, reviewing, talking about some disabled adverts. As always, I am one disabled person. I'm not all disabled people. I do not speak for all disabled people. So the comments are open for you to discuss whether or not you liked or dislike these adverts, and if you're interested, then stick around. So, we don't often see disabled people in the media, to be honest. It is pretty rare. We are seeing more of it happening, but in my opinion, we don't have enough representation in the media. And often when we do have representation, it's about our disability, or it's really focused around disability, or it's people talking about their condition, etc., which is all really good, but because we also don't get any other kind of media exposure, it can be quite difficult to feel represented in the media. It's kind of very focused around their disability, and often it can kind of venture a little bit into inspiration porn, which is basically where like disabled people are inspiring able-bodied and non-disabled people to be better because they're disabled, and able-bodied and non-disabled people could never live like that. That's basically the idea behind it. It's not true, and it can be very, very negative. But yeah, I thought I would get some adverts which include disabled people, but I will be really honest, it was actually really hard for me to find that many. So if you do know other adverts that include disabled people or about disability, etc., please do let me know down below, because I'd love to see more. We don't often see people with disabilities in advertising. We do a little bit, but yeah, not that much. And I was kind of researching and typing in like adverts with disabled people in, and they were just all very, very focused around disability and about the disability as such. And yeah, I've definitely got some thoughts on them. Some of them are good, some of them are bad, but yeah, as always, please do let me know down below, and let me know if you've seen these adverts as well. I've seen most of them, but not all of them on TV, so some of them are kind of new to me. But yeah, I just thought it'd be interesting to discuss it, because if you don't know, I actually work in advertising. I haven't ever worked with disability before, but I do work in advertising, so I do have a bit of an understanding about it myself, and like some of the things that advertisers will do to help you buy products, etc. I'm actually a graphic designer, so I don't directly work in advertising, but I have done advertising in the past. So yeah, let's watch some of these adverts and I will tell you my thoughts, and I will chip in as we're watching. So let's go. As always, I have my trusty laptop with me to watch them on, and I will pop them on the screen. So we're going to start off with the Maltesers adverts. You've probably seen these. These are around, I think, the Olympics and the Paralympics a couple of years ago. And they are including disabled actors, which is really good and exciting to see, and they're quite humorous, so let's watch them.
So, new boyfriend.
Right.
And we are back at his, getting a little
Frisky.
don't frisky. My hands may have been wandering slightly.
Go on.
And then I start having a spasm.
No.
Which he misinterprets.
Oh, so awkward.
He wasn't complaining.
You're so bad.
That's what he said.
So my opinion on this, I actually quite like the Maltesers adverts, and they did get some criticism, and we'll talk about that as well. I do quite like them. I think that they are fun and lighthearted, which is nice to see, because often when we talk about disability, it's often seen as like an inspirational kind of thing, or it's seen as a really negative thing, whereas this is just a bit of fun. It's kind of friends talking and having a conversation about their new partner, etc. And that is quite fun to see, and I think it's, for me personally, it helps me to see myself, like not necessarily myself, but my community, the disabled community, being represented, which is nice to see. And it's good that they got disabled actors in, etc., and that's all really, really positive. The criticism that it did get was the fact that it was very focused solely around the disability, rather than the fact that we just have a disabled actor who is just talking about their life, etc., because disabled people do normal things. It's not always about the fact that we're disabled. We do normal things, etc. And so some people did criticize it and say, well, it's just very, very focused around disability. It's not necessarily focused around just the person being the person. But I think in terms of advertising and adverts that I've seen that have included disabled people, this is definitely one of the better ones. And it is really positive to see Maltesers trying to include disabled people in their advertising. And I'm quite cautious to not necessarily say negative things about it, but just to be too negative on the whole about it, because I don't want people to be put off the idea of using disabled people, which obviously we shouldn't be scared of saying that, and disabled people should be able to call things out. But unfortunately, we don't live in an equal society at the moment, and I can imagine that people will be like, why are you complaining? Look, you're being seen, etc. But I do understand the points between the fact that it is just focused around disability. And I think if we lived in a world where we saw true equality and we saw disabled people just being in adverts, and we also saw disabled people talking about their disability in adverts or in the media, etc., etc., it would be less kind of, oh, well, they're just talking about disability. But because we don't, it was just kind of more of, we're just constantly bringing attention to disability rather than the person. And so that was kind of the comments that lots of people said. And I do agree with that. I guess it would be nice to not have everything just about a person's condition, but also about their life, and that they have a life and that's okay, etc. Right, let's move on to the next one, which is another Maltese advert. I think they did 4, but I choose 2 out of the 4. And we'll watch this one and I will give you my thoughts. So again, it's using deaf actors, which is really good to see. We need to see more disabled actors playing roles, all roles, but particularly roles where you're just talking about disability. We need to see more disabled actors. I like the comedy in this. It's fun. It's actually, as an advert, very interesting because there's no real like sound or noise, which in terms of like an advertising perspective, coming from me as a designer, that's quite a bold move, I would say. So it's often that within advertising you would put music on, and I'm sure that they did try it, but I'm actually really pleased that they didn't, because I think that can sometimes take away from the message, and they are highlighting the fact that these 2 people are deaf and they're having a conversation, they're friends, they're having a bit of fun, they're talking about the fact that a dog ate their hearing aid, and it's actually really interesting that you just hear those sounds of things like the cup being put down or the Maltesers moving around. So it feels like a very, very natural setting, which can make it feel very relatable. And I could kind of see, so I've got deaf family members, I could kind of see this conversation happening between my deaf family members and a deaf friend, for example. So it's definitely interesting to see, and it feels very natural as somebody who has experienced conversations between deaf people, etc., and have had conversations with deaf people. If you are deaf, you can let me know down below. Obviously I'm not deaf, so I cannot say 100% that this is what it looks like, etc. So please, if you're deaf, let me know down below your thoughts on this advert. Personally, I like it. Again, it is very focused on the disability, which is not necessarily ideal, but in terms of like an advert, I think it is nice, it gets the message across. But let me know your thoughts down below. Right, moving on to the next one. Okay, so I'm just paused it at like 17 seconds because I will say at the moment, I'm not a big fan of this so far. So this is for the Rio Paralympics in 2016. At the moment, it's very, very disability focused. I'm not necessarily going to say that's a negative thing yet, but I will say that I'm not a fan so far. I'm kind of getting a little bit of inspiration porn vibes, but we'll continue watching and see what happens.
And suddenly, yes I can. Gee, I'm afraid to go on has turned into yes I can. Take a look, what do you see? 133 pounds of confidence me. Got the feeling I can do anything. Yes I can. Something that sings in my blood is telling me yes I can. I was just born today, I can go all the way, yeah.
Okay, so we're at 49 seconds now. I'm not a fan. I think the cuts between like Paralympics and people living their normal lives is really nice. I'm not a big fan of this song of like, yes I can. And I don't know, it just to me feels a bit like this idea that like disabled people can do everything and everything, etc., etc., which I get the message. It's that idea that we shouldn't be pushing disabled people down, and we definitely shouldn't, but it's also important to recognize that disabled people, or at least me as a disabled person, I can't do everything, and that's okay. That's why I am disabled. I am not able to do everything that I need to do or want to do, etc. And so to me, saying things like yes I can on repeat could kind of end up putting a negative stereotype a bit onto the disabled community, of that idea of like you're choosing not to do something rather than somebody being unable to do something. So I think that could end up being a bit of a negative, but let's see.
I can. Yes, I can. Yes, I can. Yes, I can.
I do like this like cutting in between sound and more quiet. It's nice, that idea of within sport, etc. But I mean, I get it. I get that it's for the Paralympics, but to me at the moment, it just feels like kind of inspiration porn for non-disabled people to be like, wow, look at these disabled people doing all these things, blah, blah, blah. And also, I mean, I don't know if you agree with this, within like disability and the Paralympics, etc. We do get quite a wide spectrum, but I might be wrong with this, but I haven't seen that much of like people with invisible disabilities in the Paralympics. I'm not like a big sport fan, so that might be incorrect. Let me know if you know, but generally it seems to be more things that are visible. Not that that's a negative thing, but I think it just can sometimes mean that we don't get a full picture, and that non-disabled people don't get a full picture of what disability looks like. Maybe that's because in some sports non-disabled people and people with invisible disabilities can compete. Obviously it would depend, and there would need to be criteria, etc., etc. But yeah, I don't know, I feel like it could be a bit difficult to get the full picture of the community from this, but let's carry on.
Yes, I can. 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 Hey, yes, I can.
No, you can't.
Yes, I can!
Are you ready? I can climb Everest. Yes, I can. I can fight here all night and never rest. Yes, I can. I was just born today. I can go all the way. Yes, I can.
Well, I get it, and I think there is a nice message behind it, and I don't want to just say just negative things about this advert, because I think it's really important that we show the Paralympians and what they do, and the fact that they're like amazing at sport, and that's really cool, and yeah, that's great. And I think it does show a wide range of conditions, which is also really, really positive, and it shows a wide range of sports as well. And it does also show disabled people in their everyday life, doing their jobs, etc., doing different things. My only worry is that to non-disabled people, I think it could make it look like that disability is an excuse to not be able to do things, and it could cause guilt, at least for me as a disabled person, because there are lots of things in this at the moment, because I'm too unwell, that I wouldn't be able to do, and that's also okay. Yeah, we need to not just use disability as a like, I'm not going to do anything ever. I'm not suggesting that either. So I think it's definitely like a balance and a fine line between what we say, you know, yeah, you can do that, because obviously you don't want to be saying to disabled people like, no, you can't do anything because you have this condition, because that's definitely not true. But I guess it's also not just saying, well, you're choosing not to do something, you're lazy, etc. All these labels that disabled people often will hear, or like you're having a hissy fit, etc., etc., whatever it is. So yeah, I think it could cause issues there, and it's definitely a fine line. I get what they're saying. I'm not a big fan of this idea of we're the superhumans. I don't feel that I'm a superhuman for being disabled. I don't think that non-disabled people can't be superhumans, whatever that would mean. I feel like that's kind of using that thing of avoiding the word disabled and disability, etc. Not such a big fan personally, but that's just my personal opinion, and of course you can tell me yours. Moving on to the next one.
Me again. Allow me to pick up where I left off.
Right, let's go, Mum.
The biggest phenomenon and a Picasso with the pen. Just wanna talk that stuff till I hit him with the realness. Figured I should say something, but you don't wanna hear me vent.
2,
You can talk bad all day long, I will never be impressed. Don't know what I did to make you feel that you be earning my respect. I follow the white rabbit, got a couple carrots, I know that I got bad habits. Trying to find a balance, I'm in the store like I wanna have it, I gotta have it. You are not the toughest or baddest, my pen is the maddest. I'm probably any caboose and it's never right about this. May as well get a birthday cake and it ain't even my birthday. Cause when I switch, then they wanna say that I'm a
You're not listening, you're not listening. I said it with my chest and I don't care who I offend.
I personally really like the This Girl Can adverts. The only thing that I'm not such a big fan of is the kind of highlight of girls for me as a non-binary person, but I get we need to get more women into sport, and that is a really, really positive thing. And I think that it needs to be seen, and we need to see more women and non-binary people feeling comfortable to do sports and be involved in the gym. And it's really interesting to see that they start to normalise period products and doing exercise when on your period and normalising that. And that's really, really exciting. It's just me not particularly liking the word girl for myself, but feeling that I relate to the other, if that makes sense. But it's not necessarily a negative thing. That is me, myself. In terms of the disabled person and the disability being seen there, I think it's a nice representation. It's not just about the disability. We don't actually see that much about that particular person, and she is just included in the advert, and that's nice to see. It's not just about focusing on the fact that she's disabled. It's, yeah, disabled people do sports too, and disabled people are included in this advert, and that for me is really nice to see. It doesn't make me feel like a complete outcast who needs a completely separate advert about my disability, and it's just about my disability. This is about somebody going for a swim and getting out there and, you know, experiencing sport, etc. And so yeah, I do personally like that advert. I think it's a good representation of what disability can look like in sport, and actually the truth is that a lot of the time it's not really that interesting. Like, you just get on with your day and you don't really, not necessarily not think about it, but it's just like not that interesting. It's just like, it's fine, you know. So yeah, that's my opinion on that one. So what are my overall thoughts? So definitely I think that many of them are very focused on the disability rather than the person, and that does make me feel a little bit uncomfortable. Also, in the past there have been times where companies have literally airbrushed models to make them look like they have a limb difference to tick that diversity box instead of hiring disabled models and actors, which is absolutely terrifying and makes me feel very uncomfortable because people with limb differences exist. However, in a survey quite recently, 55% of people said that they feel uncomfortable seeing disabled people with physical conditions on screen, and 62% said that they felt uncomfortable seeing people who have mental health issues on screen and in advertising. So companies don't want to put disabled people in their advertising because it makes half of their consumer feel uncomfortable. Considering that 1/4 of the world's population, from research anyway, have a disability, that to me is scary, that 55% of people and 62% of people, depending on the condition that you're talking about, feel uncomfortable about seeing a disabled person. But who is to blame for that? Is that advertising because we aren't really seen anywhere? Is that companies not putting us in on their screen anywhere? Is that films? Is that society? What is that to blame? Maybe if more adverts did put disabled people in them, less people would feel uncomfortable about seeing them, and there would be less people asking inappropriate questions and doing inappropriate things, and disabled people are more likely to be hired, etc, etc. But yeah, that is a lot of people who feel uncomfortable about seeing disabled people, and that scares me a lot. Another thing to note as well is that shops or companies, etc, using disabled people is great, but if your shops or websites aren't accessible, then you are literally just using disabled people for clout, for money, to tick your diversity box, rather than actually caring about your disabled community and buyers. Actually, disabled people have money. If you aren't aware of something called the purple pound, that is the disability industry, and it's over a $2 billion industry. So to make your shops inaccessible, you're basically saying to disabled people, sorry, we don't want you, and to non-disabled people, you're welcome, come in here, etc, if your shops aren't accessible. And it's just not okay to just be using disabled people to boost your product out there and to get more people to buy it. It's uncomfy, it's uncomfortable, and yeah, not good. So thank you so much for watching this video. If you did like it, as always, let me know down below and give it a big thumbs up, because that really helps this video to be pushed out to more people. If you do like this video and you want to see more of me, please subscribe. And if you do want to keep up to date with me outside of YouTube, please follow me at Disabled Eliza across all social medias. I am on all of them. So thank you so much for watching. There are new videos every Tuesday and Thursday at 5 PM. Look after all of you, stay safe, wash those hands, and I will see you in the next one. Have a good week. Bye.